Imagine getting paid just for sharing your thoughts on products and services you use every day. With Survey Junkie, it's that simple. Click on the link in the video description to discover how you can start earning today by taking surveys.
Any relief for household borrowers in the form of rate cuts remains a distant prospect, with experts warning interest rates will not ease until 2025. ANZ's head of Australian economics Adam Boyton said firmer than expected household consumption, continued resilience in the jobs market and persistent inflation would delay rate cuts until February next year. It's not that monetary policy isn't working. It is, Mr. Boyton wrote in a note to clients. The economy has clearly slowed, particularly across private final demand. It's for this reason that we think a rate hike remains unlikely. However, getting an appropriate balance between the level of demand and supply is likely to take a little longer than expected. While ANZ's economists retained their projections for 2 follow-up rate cuts after February, it warned that risks to that projection were skewed to the downside, with cuts worth 50 basis points more likely than 4 cuts worth 100 basis points. Investors are more pessimistic over the timing of rate cuts, with money markets fully priced for 25 basis points worth of easing in July next year. Economists and analysts are also keeping a close eye on the release of fresh U.S. inflation data on Wednesday and a meeting of the U.S. Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, on Thursday, AEST, for clues on the path of rate cuts overseas. After jobs growth continued to surprise last month and highlighted the continued resilience of the U.S. economy in the face of stubbornly persistent inflation and elevated borrowing costs, it is widely expected the Fed will keep rates on hold. Fed officials will also submit new interest rate forecasts, which are anticipated to show a majority of members now see 2 rate cuts by year's end, rather than the 3 cuts that were projected by a narrow majority at a meeting in March. While mortgage stress is climbing amid cost of living pressures and high interest rate levels, the lion's share of household borrowers are meeting their loan repayments, the Australian Council of Financial Regulators has said. The council, which coordinates the management of Australia's financial system and is chaired by RBA Governor Michelle Bullock, warned on Tuesday that while most borrowers had handled the increase in interest rates, the proportion of mortgagors falling into arrears had climbed. While budget pressures from inflation and interest rates continue to be widely felt, with many households making adjustments to their finances, most borrowers have continued to meet their debt repayments, the council said in a statement. Members observed that the share of borrowers falling behind on mortgage payments has continued to rise, as have financial hardship applications, but from a low level. Starting in May 2022, the RBA has aggressively raised interest rates 13 times to a 12-year high as it attempted to contain inflationary pressures, heaping higher costs on household borrowers. Since November, the central bank has left the cash rate on hold at 4.35% as it awaits further evidence that inflation is returning to its 2 to 3% target band. Risks from domestic lending to commercial real estate, CRE, were also considered by the Council at its quarterly review of the financial sector. Members observed that these remained contained due to banks' low exposures, conservative lending practices, and the relatively strong financial positions of CRE owners, the Council added. Responding to the statement, Treasurer Jim Chalmers noted that measures slated to come into effect on July 1 would ease pressures faced by households. People are under the pump, and that's why our budget and our economic plan is all about easing cost of living pressures with tax cuts for every taxpayer and energy rebates for every household and for 1 million small businesses, Dr. Chalmers said. Data released by the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, ASIC, last month showed the number of hardship notices, where a borrower informs their lender they cannot meet their loan obligations, had risen 54% in the final 3 months of 2024 when compared with the corresponding quarter a year earlier. In May, the ASIC urged banks to increase the level of support it provided struggling borrowers after a review found accessing hardship assistance was too hard. While the corporate regulators review found that experience differed between lenders, in the worst CA.